Good afternoon, folks. Let's go ahead and get started. Woo, I like that cheering already. You don't even know what we have to offer and you're cheering us. You're cheering for lunch. You're excited about it. Thank you all for coming out on this beautiful day in the midst of our Diversity Symposium. My name is Raya Vigil, and I serve as an Assistant Vice President in the Office of the Vice President for Diversity. Welcome to the 2019 CSU Inspire. Yeah, absolutely. I have the honor today of being your host as we hear the many inspiring programs, ideas, and initiatives happening in relation to diversity, equity, and inclusion at CSU. I would like to invite you to the many more events that are happening throughout this week as a part of the Diversity Symposium. Who has attended other events? People should be losing their minds right now. That's how many events we want you to be attending. We have a full lineup for the rest of the week. Come seek one of us out at one of these front tables. We have a full schedule, or we have a variety of posters that are scheduled that have the full schedule throughout the Student Center if you would like to see more information. So I'd like to offer a special invite to a fireside chat happening today at 4 p.m. in the LSE Theater with President McConnell, Vice President for Diversity, Mary Ontiveros, Vice President for Student Affairs, Blanche Hughes, and this will be focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion and moving forward as a university. So please come attend. Again, it's an hour and a half in the LSE Theater. So this year, we are celebrating our 150th anniversary as an institution. And as we reflect upon who we have been in those 150 years, there are many accomplishments that we can be very proud of. There is also, however, room for us to grow to better reflect our commitment to social justice, improve our culturally inclusive practices, and to prioritize the students who we are honored to call our own. CSU Inspire is an opportunity for our community to first and foremost come together and heal. And I don't know about you all, but I could use some healing after this semester. To listen to each other and to learn from one another, both at an individual level, but also as a community. It is also an opportunity to highlight what we are doing to promote equity and inclusion across CSU. In the next hour, you will hear 6 presenters share inspiring personal stories, innovative, socially just research, and voices of strong campus leaders making a difference every day to promote equity in their communities. Each presenter was asked to deliver this information in just 8 minutes. And as you can imagine, this is no small feat. And it's incredibly intimidating. So thank you for coming out and supporting them today. Each presenter has welcomed our challenge, and we are so excited to have them with us here today. Our first presenter is Halina Gardner. With a passion for learning and learners, Halina has 19 years working in higher education experience. With the goal of leaving everything a little better than she found it, she actively provides mentorship and advisement to students and professionals around the globe. She calls Detroit, Michigan her home, though she lives with us here in Fort Collins. She is the mother of the most amazing, brilliant, talented, and compassionate 14-year-old son who serves as her daily reminder of why she does this work. She currently serves as the Director of University Housing at CSU and has the most amazing staff, as you can tell by the numerous shouts that have already begun for her. She enjoys engaging in deep conversation about music, factual history, Beyonce, and changing the world. Halina lives by the motto, I can and I will. She leads with the motto, be great. She loves with every ounce of her soul. Please help me welcome Halina Gardner.
So here I am. I'll try that one more time. Can you hear me now? All right, so here I am. I've spent 40 plus years doing all the things. As a child, I spent summers inside reading books and doing math instead of making dirt pies. My parents struggled sending my brother and I to Catholic school in hopes of a safer education when drugs and crime were rampant in Detroit public schools. And while my family members were actively creating the story that many fear of Detroit, I got into the smart high school. I started and graduated with about 140 students. Persistence was high, as academic success was the heaviest form of peer pressure. I graduated with a 3.36 in the lower 20th percentile, and near everyone went on to college. We were indeed some high achievers. As a first-gen college student, I not only became the first in my family to attain a bachelor's degree, but I was also the first to attain a master's degree. I was heavily engaged in campus activities and campus politics, and folks at my undergrad still refer to me by name when they talk about institutional changes. I did the things. I have moved through my career in higher education with a little over 18 years doing this work. Most recently, I became the director of university housing. Okay, y'all. As an RA a billion years ago, that was goals. I was, in fact, that student who thought they could do it better. You're welcome. I did the things. The narrative is that if I studied hard and worked hard, I would make it off the block. I could be different than my parents. I would be successful, and opportunities would be abundant. So I earned and claimed my seat at the table. My whole life, my father claimed he was an A student, and I recently learned that was a lie. My mother would have been the title holder in our family. She chose marriage. My brother, well, college isn't for everyone, but I did the thing. And as a black person, they said that a college degree would make me successful. And yet I haven't found that to be the way out. I experience microaggressions and racism daily. And every single year of my professional experience, I managed to be an angry black woman, or I have intimidated someone. And in fact, as recent as yesterday, while attending a professional institute where I serve in a leadership role, someone said to me, the director, as if the truth I was speaking in my introduction was not real, because I just don't look like I should be, because I don't belong. I grew up not black enough for some and too black for others, and that has not changed. Leading while black is exhausting. It's like even though my resume, my output, my professional involvement and success should be enough, nope. Others still engage with me as if I don't belong or shouldn't be here. And that's just in a work capacity. Outside of this space, no one starts with assumptions of my success. What leads is others' perspective of who they think I am, who I could be, or who I should be. I legit checked off all the things. I did all the things necessary to succeed. I gained a physical seat at the table and did not find my freedom from racism and oppression. It's like my blackness is always called into question. I never wake up thinking I'm less than another, and I raise my son to know the same. I know my melanated value. I know that my voice in this space is a gift. There is not a program nor initiative that is more valuable to the contribution of my physical presence, my labor of life, nor the burdens I carry or the stories I tell. Visibly seeing me directly contributes to retention. And I woke up like this. And yet the fact that I did all the things is still not enough. I still don't belong. So what must it be like for our black students? Because today I'm only talking about being black because it's the only story I can tell. Students like me right now are checking off the list and doing all the things. And though my story isn't everyone's story, it's the same across identities. You do this, you do this, you do that, and ta-da! We have the collective responsibility as educators to create a sense of belonging. That's not just rhetoric. That is actually our job. So let me back up and be scholarly for a second, because sometimes people need that. Vincent Tinto said, access without support is not opportunity. So every week, my son has to turn in 15 pages of notes. He's in an AVID program that's supposed to ensure access, right? Because that will give him the opportunity to go to college. And yet, I'm not sure if you're familiar with another high school student who did all the things, but in fact was killed while walking down the street in a hoodie, eating Skittles. Those 15 pages are not going to be enough to change the narrative for my son, nor will it be enough to change the narrative for our students. Living while Black is a mental health crisis on the rise, and that's hard to say. In the words of the lyrically gifted artist Jay-Z, can I live? Our students are currently telling us they cannot live successfully on our campus. They have checked off the list of the things to get them access to be here with us today. You know, they're out here doing the things, and somehow their sense of belonging is in question, and not only by them, because one wants to belong, but one has to belong. For over 400 years, Black people's place has been up for negotiation, discussion, and debate. That's just too long. We did the things, we want the things, we deserve the things. In a meeting recently, someone shared a statement along the lines of, if you are an expert, be an expert. And I'm learning that being an expert can be hard, but I'd offer you to consider just how basic that is. If you know how to do your work, then doing your work for marginalized identities as an expert should come naturally, because you are an expert, and that means you know all the things, so do it. But you see how that works? Because checking all the things off the list isn't enough, because one has to value centering marginalized identities to create a sense of belonging. Because when you don't, you just don't, and that is actually basic. Ensure systems and institutional racism and oppression hold power more than the power of individualized privilege, and like maybe, but that's not what we're talking about today. And though I don't always belong, I persevere. I found my space to change with my work within university housing. Shout out to my team, we do great things, and we can do better, because living while Black is not easy. And I'm actually in the business of managing where people live. As a reminder, all those holding marginalized identities are checking the list and doing a thing. Ernest Boyer said, a poor surgeon hurts one person at a time. A poor teacher hurts 130 at a time. And although I did math every day in the summer, I'm actually not gifted at relating those numbers back to our work. But the concept of our collective responsibility as educators to purposely center marginalized identities in our work is critical to reducing the harm caused by our students who do not feel like they belong. Two local favorites have helped shape how I move forward with my work. Patrice Palmer taught me to stop breaking myself into bite-sized pieces for others to best understand me, rather stay whole and let them choke, or digest me. Dr. Carmen Rivera taught me the power in putting my pieces together to continue my story. The duality required by my Blackness is that I do both. We call that working twice as hard at the cookout. I've explained that working twice as hard is not my path to freedom. Society has not allowed me a place at the table. Those with marginalized identities are ready, and together we can change the experience on this campus and ultimately the world. I'm gonna need for my white friends to figure out what they're gonna do to dismantle exclusion. We often talk about inclusion. I'm gonna need you to work on not excluding me. Real talk, the route we have taken in education, it hasn't worked. So legit, we're gonna have to do something different. And I know, because I did all the things. Thank you. Thank you. Did I do it? Thank you. Is that all your papers? Okay, I'll double check. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Thank you.
I promise that the drums will make more sense in a second.
So over.
Nope, I need two.
Uh-oh, I did. I knew I was, I'm still on.
Halina did all the things and continues to do all the things. And I mean that in university housing, and I just want to, thank you. I just want to thank you for sharing your experience. I do, because you don't have to. And I want to thank you for that, not so that we can say that really sucks, but so that we can do better. That we can do better as a community, that we can do better for our students who are sold, if you complete all of these things, you will have a better opportunity. We need to produce that. We need to produce that in our institution, and we need to produce that in the greater world. So thank you so much, Halina. That was so fantastic. Yeah, woo! Again, here's those drums. It's gonna make more sense here in just a second. So our next presenter is Dr. Caridad Sousa. Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Sousa is the director of the Center for Women's Studies and Gender Research at Colorado State University. Her teaching and research interests include contemporary race and ethnic relations and theories, poverty, multiracial and decolonial feminism, and critical ethnography. Caridad has written about teenage pregnancy, work, gender and households, Latina sexualities, and feminist pedagogies. Her intellectual interests involve intersectional well-being, inequality, and she has worked on gender equity at CSU on various committees, including the President's Commission on Women and Gender Equity, the Standing Committee on the Status of Women Faculty, and was one of the researchers on the gender equity study for the university. More recently, she has begun to use the theater of the oppressed techniques in her classes as a way towards increased embodiment. She is fascinated with the concept of social healing towards a more equitable, just, and free society. Please help me welcome Caridad Sousa.
Thank you. Every year for the last decade, I have traveled to Ghana, West Africa, with students who want to participate in community engagement. About 10 years ago, Marianne Rojas, in the insert, an alumna from the New York program, observed that Ghana, she just keeps giving and giving and giving. I often share Marianne's words because it helps me to emphasize the respect and responsibility that become the gifts given and the gifts received in what the sociologist Kate O'Donnell calls transnational solidarity. The idea that we can accompany people in their societies as we visit their societies. Another alumna, Brianna Compton from the CSU program, coined the phrase Gifts from Ghana to describe an event that we do every year to share our photos and stories about the trip. Whenever people ask me why I go to Ghana, I talk about my Africana studies major in college, about how we learned about decolonization across the world in Africa and Asia and Latin America, and how our professors gave us the works of various Pan-Africanists, including the works of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, whose great book, Conscientism, the Philosophy and Ideology of Decolonization, had a really important and lasting effect on my own political thinking. So when in 2008, the chance came up to go to Ghana, because in the Africana and Latino Studies program that I was in, my colleagues developed a study abroad program. I was thrilled and I jumped on it. I thought to myself, sure, I'd love to see Nkrumah's Ghana. I was not prepared for how that particular place and that particular continent would help me to feel so absolutely rooted, something that those of us in the African diaspora rarely feel. Was it that deep calm that I felt in an entirely black country? Or was it the familiar rush and heat of humidity that greeted me as I got off the plane and reminded me of my mother's ancestral homeland, Puerto Rico? I don't know. I just know that I found my bearings in Ghana, that I could hear and feel myself there. And so as one of the participants wrote in a poem, that place became home, and the place that I was from became a foreign land. But my story is deeply interwoven with the stories of student participants who experience the trip with me and make it so special and so magical. The trip's impact as a heritage voyage for mostly first-gen students of color, non-traditional students, queer and non-binary students, and other marginalized identities, mostly the folks who don't usually go to study abroad, is huge. Imagine this. I get to take them to Ghana and to see them unfurl in the most amazing ways, to watch as they find their bearings as well, when Ghana acts as a North Star in the global South. Ghana and Ghanaians nourish us in so many unexpected ways. Don't get me wrong, the trip has its challenges. There's a physicality to life there that Americans can't handle. There's a heat and there's dust, there's power outages, and we have to confront our history of enslavement, epitomized by the dungeons of Elmina and Cape Coast castles, where the spirits of our ancestors linger and remind us about the atrocities we've read about, but until there, haven't felt viscerally. Going to Ghana means we confront our small-mindedness as Americans. What we often don't bargain for, and yet we receive in abundance, is a set of experiences that I like to think about as micro-assertions. What we experience in Ghana as we move through her and she moves through us is how life itself asserts itself in small and powerful ways, in ways that call our humanity into being. Take Ashley, a CSU participant, whose group got lost in the market. I set up these teams and assign them items, a list of items to find in the market. The catch is, while I teach them the pronunciation of the items, I don't tell them what they are. The team has to figure out what these items are, what they're used for, how to buy them, and how much they cost. So Ashley's group got lost in the market. And many, many market people took the time out of their daily lives to help the group find the items on the list. Ashley writes that getting lost in the market helped her to find something really valuable. She writes, "What I found, what I was gifted in Ghana, far outweighed the initial panic I felt when I realized we were lost. I quickly learned that in the market, while Tree was being spoken, another language lived, the language of women who are providers. And I was forced to confront my Western ideas about time." For Ashley, time in the US feels like not enough, like too much, feels predictable and set, like planners and appointments and calendars. She always knows what the time is by how many it takes to do something, how many minutes it takes to drive to campus, how many seconds it takes to warm up a cup of coffee. Time, she writes, tastes like convenience and fast food. Time is expensive in the US. But in Ghana, she was given so much of someone else's time that she wasn't quite sure how to repay the gesture. The time she spent with the market women felt like more than time. It felt like an invitation, a gift larger than the jug of palm wine that she and her group were searching for. The gift Ghana gave her encouraged her to live differently in the US. She came back and thought more about how we talk about time, how we use phrases like spending time and wasting time and running out of time, and how we encourage others to be on time, but hardly do we ever enjoy the time and share time and take our time. The market women gifted Ashley with a sense of time that she will never forget and a new language that she will always remember as a gift that Ghana gave her. I have many stories like this one. Inevitably, throughout the trip, something important and intense and magical happens. We learn what it means to just be ourselves, unadorned. Participants learn to surrender the capitalist speed up, the competition to be number one, the stress of trying to move up the social and economic hierarchies of the US, the quest to be quote unquote successful, and we experience a way of living by Ghanaians that inspires us. Another important thing that happens in Ghana is that for many of us, the volume is lowered. The white noise literally shuts off, shuts down. And we see life and the world around us from a different angle, where we can actually breathe, where we can hear, where we can smell and taste, where we can feel. Somewhere along our trek across the 5 regions that we visit, we begin to shift from a worldview focusing on seeing to a world sense focusing on feeling. Somewhere, somehow, this world sensing happens to us in Ghana, and it's a game changer for many of us. The poet Sonia Sanchez says that the most important question of the 20th century is, what does it mean to be human? Those of us who go to Ghana catch a glimpse of what it means to be human, to find common cause and common interests with those we accompany. And so I continue to take students to Ghana to receive those intangibles that cannot be monetized, to become aware of our Western ways of seeing and being and knowing. The people of Ghana and the communities we work with while there have shown us so much about what it means to live differently. And so, Dr. Nkrumah's words, "Forward ever, backward never," rings powerfully into the 21st century as we, in our very small way, go to his Ghana and engage in learning a world sense that allows us to be just a little bit more human. Thank you for listening.
I am super jealous. I want a soundtrack wherever I go now. I'm like, that would be so fantastic. So thank you so much, Caridad, for sharing that. I also want to encourage you all, at the end of our session today, we build in a little bit of time, but come and interact with our presenters, ask them questions, ask more about the Ghana experience and the Ghana trip that is taken annually here at CSU to learn more about how we can ourselves embody some of those experiences. So thank you so much. So our next presenter is Meg Ski Han. Yeah. Meg Ski Han uses they, them, their pronouns, has been at CSU for over 6 years as a state classified employee. They have worked in dining services at the College of Liberal Arts and has been in the College of Business for 3 years. You might recognize Meg running around campus to various trainings and committee meetings by their tall stature and signature haircut. That's true. Yeah. Meg is working on a bachelor's in ethnic studies and interdisciplinary liberal arts using the employee study privilege. Through their education, they have been inspired to give back to their community and growing as a professional by participating in service work on campus. Meg is in their second year serving as a chair for the Classified Personnel Council and has served on the council for almost 5 years. Meg loves memes. In fact, they made most of the memes in their presentation today. Help me welcome Meg Ski Han.
Thanks, Brian. Is this on? All right. In the principles of community, service is defined as a responsibility to individually and collectively give our time, talents, and resources to promote the well-being of each other and the development of our local, regional, and global communities. As chair of the Classified Personnel Council, which I'll call CPC for the rest of this talk, and member of several committees, I live this ideology daily here at CSU. I believe that service work helps us as individuals and as an entire community. But I also see a need for us to reframe the importance of service and how it is a key component to any organization to develop people and culture for good. CPC works closely with 2 other employee representative groups, the Administrative Professional Council and the Faculty Council. We strive to actively live the values defined in the principles of community and shared governance. The opportunity given to me to participate in service work has shown me the power of service, and that when faced with seemingly impossible tasks, we can work together to help everyone. I offer my story and perspective to illustrate the power and importance of service work. So I've been at CSU for over 6 years. I was attracted to working here because I wanted to get a college degree. And that's right, I don't have a college degree, not yet. My whole adult life, I've been held back from doing the work that I'm passionate about because I don't have a piece of paper. I also have a great deal of privilege that has given me success. And when I'm white, I speak English, so my voice is often heard over those of other people in the room. I make good money, I'm able-bodied. I have worked hard, but I acknowledge systemic privilege that I benefit from daily to do my service work wholeheartedly and holistically. I started working in dining services as a supervisor, and while I love my work, I needed to get experience doing something else. So I got a job in ethnic studies, and then a promotional opportunity opened up in the College of Business, where I am now. It's been the service work I do on campus and with CPC and other committees that I have found what I'm really passionate about, advocating for those who do not get a seat at the table, bringing perspective from the real-life experience that I have, not theory in a classroom. I do this because I want to leave this place better than how I came to it. Our campus is a collective of knowledge and skills, nestled in a society and culture of individualism that is designed to divide us. We can't always see the bigger picture, and we often lose sight of how our work feeds into the greater purpose. When we become contributors, we take ownership of initiatives that meet our talents. We can then see the network of support that surrounds us. We're already an interdependent in our daily operations, but we need to create opportunities for people to be more involved beyond what is mandated in their job description. There is truth in the idea that if you don't ask or recommend, you don't know what can happen. And my service work gives me and others an opportunity to make a direct impact on our campus community by asking questions, providing input, and pushing for change. We've achieved change on issues related to parental leave, gender salary equity, supervisor training, the Living Wage Initiative, and so much more. If you don't participate, if you don't speak up, if you don't ask, you can't affect change. State classified employees I represent on CPC are everywhere on campus. They're the facilities folks that maintain our buildings and keep our sidewalks clear when it snows. Environmental service employees that clean the trash out of your office and keep our buildings clean. And there's so many more. We're often an invisible workforce, doing hard and skilled work that needs to be done. But we are typically not invited or encouraged to participate in service work. There are many committees that do not have state classified employees, or maybe just one state classified employee on them. That's usually me. Service is not included in our annual review process, and it makes it an extra activity, not a necessary or celebrated, except for maybe once a year, activity. It's also more likely to get permission to participate in a service work if you're serving on committees with higher ed sounding titles like Presidential Commission on Effective Sit-Stand Policies. It sounds real, right? It's not. Maybe Joyce can launch that in the spring. Service work is not accessible to many state classified employees because potential service work opportunities might not align with the purpose of their role on campus directly, or because meetings occur outside of their normal work time, or because they have to be at their job at certain times to serve the food that our students need to eat in the dining halls. With such rigid schedules, there's not a lot of flexibility. I'm really lucky. I've had incredibly supportive supervisors here at CSU that let me spend a lot of time on service. Not everyone has has supervisors like Lisa Kutcher, my current supervisor, who knows and trusts that I'm getting my day job work done, even when I'm running around to different meetings throughout the week. But there are people who avoid participation in service because they don't have, or they fear that they won't have their supervisor's support. Service work is necessary, and it helps create an inclusive community here at CSU. For me, service work has been a space for personal and professional growth. I have met so many wonderful and talented people who have inspired me to keep going, to finish my degree, and to do the work that needs to be done even when it seems impossible. Service work is rewarding. It can also be really draining. It is particularly hard because not everyone is supported to do the service work on campus. So the work falls on the few who can do it, have capacity to do it, or are like me, and really need to work on saying no more often. Burning out sucks. I'm sure there are many people in this room right now who are burned out or maybe on the verge of burning out. But I ask you to listen to this really nice narwhal. And what they're telling you is that you can't take care of others until you've taken care of yourself. We cannot do the necessary work if we don't support one another. We have to be compassionate. We have to send appreciation cards through campus mail. Or just acknowledge the strain and how hard it is just to get up out of bed some days because everything feels so heavy. Service work at CSU is important, not just for the institution, but for the individuals. Personal and professional growth has made me a better worker. I actually really look forward to going to work every day. Navigating different needs, being persistent, the glacial pace of change in higher education. It's also rewarding to challenge yourself to help others, to ask in meetings, is this really inclusive? And to realize that your knowledge is beyond your day job. And service work is so much more than struggling to find a time when all, or at least most, can meet, or procedural approval of prior meeting minutes. It is also making recommendations to the administration that you hope that they will accept and move forward with. I have a responsibility in my role to follow up on this work and to keep that work moving forward. There's so much to keep track of. I strongly rely on not only my calendar, but a whole team of people to really help me move things forward. I am really good at bringing stuff up and really good at forgetting little details. So I'm laying the groundwork right now on a few issues that are going to take many years to change and that need solutions. Things like equitable leave benefits for state classified employees, advocating for trans and non-binary folks on this campus, and cultural change to address bias and racism on campus. So I have various challenges for you all today. Don't just show up, be engaged. Get more involved, try to make time for a training or committee. Maybe take advantage of your employee study privilege and take a class. Underwater basket weaving, I hear, could be a really popular option in the art program. I encourage you all to think about the principles of community and live your life holding those deep in your heart. Inclusion, integrity, respect, service, and social justice. And more importantly, say thank you. Thank you to the people participating in the service work who collectively pour endless time and talent into different initiatives here on campus. Thank you to the person who served your lunch today. Thank you to the person who picked up that piece of trash on the floor. Thank you to the person who teaches our classes, who processes your travel reimbursements, and so much more. So I'd really like to just take a moment to say thank you to you, to the really incredible, hardworking, organized staff in the VPD office who helped organize this event today, and just to remember that when you participate, you can be the change that you want to see in this world. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you so much, Meg. And Meg absolutely embodies service. In fact, I've worked with Meg for the last probably 3 years pretty closely on committees, and I kid you not, it wasn't a couple months ago that I said, Meg, what do you do on campus? Like what? Who pays your bills, right? Because we work with Meg on committees through the service that they embody and truly live out. And so it took me a little bit to even realize that they exist somewhere on this campus, other than in my committees. So thank you so much for the work that you all do. And I do want to recognize that there is such a small percentage of people on our campus that do the variety or do the majority of all of the service that happens. And so I would ask you if you are able to get involved. I would also say if you are a supervisor of state classified folks and there's a way that you could help support them get involved or help support them connect with this institution, please consider doing it, because we would not be the institution we are today, nor who we want to be in the future without service. Okay, our next presenter is Roe Bubar. Roe Bubar is a professor at Colorado State University and jointly appointed in the Department of Ethnic Studies in the School of Social Work. She also serves as faculty in women's studies. Roe focuses on gender and indigenous health disparities, specifically in tribal communities. In her work in indigenous methodologies, indigenous feminisms, and intersectionality inform her research in sexual violence and child maltreatment. Her most recent scholarship focuses on ways microaggressions serve settler colonialism in an indigenous mixed methods study. Please help me welcome Roe Bubar.
Living indigenous methodologies is how our small family-owned farm started, to reconnect with the land as Native folks living in an urban area. My partner and I, who's pictured above, felt that this was a way to teach our sons things that we had learned growing up, to grow our own food, to save our seeds, to dry corn, to preserve berries, to can vegetables, to raise poultry, and to be able to dress out wild birds. Our small farm grew into an urban farm project, where we bring students, faculty, staff, neighbors, and community members to plant, to weed, to harvest, to cook, and to eat in a communal way. As we celebrate the harvest in the fall, we bring together the urban indigenous community. Living indigenous methodologies integrates 4 different R's of the indigenous research design, and it works by using stories. So this is how we understand food, as medicine, where farm work provides balance and solace in a busy urban lifestyle. This is a photo of our corn crop, and it looks much like the corn I'm drying right now. Corn is an indigenous crop cultivated and originating from indigenous peoples in the Americas. Historical and current impacts from federal Indian policies in the U.S. have seriously interrupted and sabotaged Native communities in their historic use of foods along with indigenous ways of living. Our farm is one small, purposeful way to take control over our own food and our own health. When tribes take control of their food and economies, Winona LaDuke says this can potentially have a global effect. If we moved from industrialized agriculture to a relocalized organic agriculture structure that's currently destroying our glaciers, oceans, forests, and lands, we could actually make a difference. We could sequester about 1/4 of the carbon moving into the air. This is how we consider food. Food as a culture, it has a history, it has a story, it has relationships. So this is the first R in how we connect to all living things on the farm. The Native American Cultural Center in the first picture has been a co-sponsor of this event for the past 6 years. In the second picture, we see students from ethnic women's studies and really across the university that come on the day of harvest to pick the corn, beans, squash, potatoes, and Brussels sprouts that my partner has here in the last picture. These foods become the menu for our harvest dinner. Folks may not know each other well, but they learn about each other as they're picking corn in the rows, as they figure out a rhythm on how to work together while digging Peruvian potatoes or shelling Hidatsa shield beans. Initially, some people are reluctant to get dirty. They jump when they see a snake. They move quickly when they see a vole. They yelp when dealing with insects. But after a few hours of work, they leave with a bag of produce, committed to trying new foods, and they have a smile on their face. So how is local indigenous farming efforts relevant for tribal, urban, and suburban communities? There's a case right now, it's called Keeps Eagle. It's in a settlement from where the USDA was found discriminating against native farmers and ranchers. This settlement now makes it possible for a new level of access to food sovereignty for tribes in the US. And it also will make and help small urban native farmers like us as well. This settlement could really impact reclamation of different native foods. In the first picture up here, you see squash blossoms that are used in traditional dishes. And in the second picture, you see the Three Sisters planting method on our farm for corn, beans, and squash that demonstrate how complementary crops, when they're grown together, can really benefit one another. Restoring traditional systems are important. The third R is respect. Respect for understanding the role of Native women and how they have held that traditionally in agricultural practices in many tribes, as well as supporting and uplifting one another. Each fall, a group of women from the Native Women's Circle at the Native American Cultural Center come to the farm, process and peel the corn. This created a space for women of all ages and from many different tribal backgrounds to come together, to work, to eat, and to laugh together. Yes, we learned how to deal with the boerworms, earwigs, and other creepy crawlers, but taking care of the land and life that lives alongside us carries with it all kinds of different responsibilities. And this year we had an abundance of grasshoppers. In fact, they ate half our crop. And in the end, through our efforts to do hunting, I brought my chickens out to do hunting of grasshoppers on a regular basis. But in the end, we had to split it with them. Reciprocity is our final R and a way of giving back to community, and it takes a lot of different forms. So one way we do that, one way we uphold this knowledge, is the agreement we have with our hens. Yeah, we take and we do eat their eggs, but in turn, we provide them with a retirement plan. They live their days out on the farm. The student class project in the second picture is how table exhibits come to be on the tables at the harvest dinner. Featured here in the middle photo is a project by Tahani and Anarelli. These students chose to create an exhibit demonstrating the impact of settler colonialism and the 1956 policy to encourage Native people to leave their reservations and give up their cultural ways and to live in large cities like LA, in Chicago, and Denver. This type of exhibit makes visible the logic of elimination and how Native people were potentially separated from food practices. Farm mysteries are a daily part of life. Raising crops and animals brings all kinds of life forms, and an entire ecosystem develops. We become part of a reciprocal relationship, and with those relationships come great gifts and great responsibilities. Farm stories serve as a method for engagement and learning lessons. A feral cat named Queenie took up residency under our front deck with her 2 kittens about 5 years ago. There are approximately 70 million feral cats in the US, and they tend to kill small animals and birds, which creates conflicts with people. Her kittens, we had them fixed, we got their shots, and the people at the clinic wanted to take them. Queenie hung around despite losing them. And it took time, but I lured her out into our house with food and water through a small cat window that I installed. Eventually, we socialized her, and it took us 2 years before we could even touch her. So I think it's important to know that relationships take time, they're incremental, they always are fraught with challenges, successes, and setbacks. This was one of Queenie's gifts, that little rabbit that you saw in my partner's hands. She brought it to us on Easter morning 2 years ago. The harvest dinner featured here comes the week before fall break. Preparations start early in the day of the dinner. Students, community, faculty, and neighbors contribute in the process to prepare a meal that will feed between 130 and 150 people in Fort Collins. Everyone looks forward to the dinner. They really look forward to visiting. There are 35 volunteers that cook and work in the food preparation. Meg, who just presented earlier, she runs the kitchen for this event. They do an amazing job, and folks look forward to their now famous maple brine turkey that they prepare every year. Jean, my neighbor, Teresa, Tiffany, and Ty from NAC, and I host a group of student volunteers to set up for what proves to be an amazing array of food. We hear folks really renew commitments to eat healthy and stay connected with community. An elder usually shares a blessing, while another member offers a song. The tables are littered with dried corn to take home, donated flowers to share, flyers about indigenous food, and inspirational quotes. The Native American Cultural Center makes sure that there's a giveaway every year, and by the end of the night, everybody leaves with something special. Food sovereignty is an affirmation of who indigenous people are, and a way to restore our relationship with the world around us. It comes with the past, but it also provides a key to the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ro. I heard the presentation earlier today, and I thought, I have got to go work on this farm. Like, I want to know everything about it, and I hope that you are feeling that same way after hearing the inspiring story. So I would encourage you, hang around in just a little bit, ask Ro how you can support it, how you could be a part of it, because it's an absolutely fantastic program that is coming from our institution, straight from ethnic studies. So our next presenter is Chris Bars Mendoza. Yeah. Chris is a Colorado-based Brazilian writer and artist. Chris has created illustration and comics focused on LGBTQ characters, creating content and stories in Portuguese and English concurrently. Besides tackling political issues, his stories also explore universal themes such as love, friendship, and the daily life of queer people. Chris also mixes elements of queer culture and other areas of his work as an artist, such as dance and drag. Please help me welcome Chris Bars Mendoza.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Caridad Mendoza, but you can call me Chris. I'm originally from Brazil, and I've been living in Colorado, Estados Unidos for 4 years. I currently work here at CSU as an illustrator at Creative Services. I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, in a conservative, middle-class, mixed-race family. My father was in the military, and because of that, we lived in many small cities and towns around Brazil. So that combination, conservative family, military life, and small towns, is not the best if you're a queer kid. Repression in the family and bullying in every single neighborhood and school I've been was the life I knew growing up because I was a sissy. So I turned to comics, cartoons, drawing, writing as a way to escape and cope. So for some reason, I really liked the X-Men, a group of people that were born with different characteristics, and for that same reason, they were hated and feared by society. At the same time, I love Japanese animation, especially the ones with characters that were sexually ambiguous and androgynous. Sound familiar? So that was all subtext for minorities and diversity, though. But the straight characters, they were all openly falling in love, having relationships, flirting, having sex, and having kids. No subtext for them. Growing up was hell. I was only able to accept myself and come out to people in my 3rd year of college. After that, I kept creating comics. And at that point, I was immersed in the LGBTQ community in Brazil. But no comics that I read reflected me, my friends, and the people that were around us. So instead of waiting for someone to do it for me, I decided to do it myself because I had the resources to do it. So in 2014, I created Out and About, or Torta de Climão in Portuguese. It was a series of comic strips with more than 12 characters, and mostly LGBTQ, that tackles universal themes like love, work, relationship, friendship, family, but also touches subjects specifically related to the fact that those characters are LGBTQ, such as prejudice. So my strips went viral online, and in less than a year, a publisher approached me, and I had my first book published in bookstores all around the country. My characters had different backgrounds, personalities, accents, and identities. As a writer, it was a huge challenge to write and develop characters with different identities than mine. It's something that takes time, a lot of research, talking to people, and reaching out. So actually, in that process, I found out that activism had a lot more to do with listening than talking, especially if you have privileges inside your own minority group. I could not write a lesbian character the same way that I would write a gay man, and the same for non-white characters or trans characters. My readers were also have been key to that process. They are the first ones to tell me if I make any mistakes, or if they identify with my characters and the situations that they go through. A lot of times, the comment sections becomes this beautiful safe zone space for sharing personal experiences and finding a support group. That goes beyond my comics. Every once in a while, one of my comics would go viral, reaching millions of people, and I could see the real power of the internet. Just as I could when the comment section became a battle zone, when some of my strips were reached homophobic or transphobic people. So in 2016, we had something similar in Brazil to the Me Too movement here. With the reach that I had with my comics, I wanted to help. And again, all I had to do was to listen. We notice in comics that readers get really emotionally attached to fictional characters. I knew a good percentage of my readers were straight men, possibly because of their, girlfriends, possibly, but still, I had some, and those were the ones that I wanted to talk to. So I didn't think it was my place to write about rape culture in Brazil, so I invited 3 women who were vocal about abuse that happened to them, and they write their own stories. So it was unedited by me, and initially, my readers thought that those stories were something that had happened to the characters they like. So in the end, they would find out that those were real stories. And again, the comment section became something amazing. Moving here 4 years ago, I started not only translating, but adapting my comic strips to English. And for the last 3 years, I've been working for the Matthew Shepard Foundation, creating comics for LGBT youth, a lot of times with the same characters that I created back in Brazil. And I touch subjects such as mental health, intersecting that with LGBTQ youth, such as anxiety or PTSD. With my work, I try to provide to others the support that I did not have as a queer kid, as a teenager, and as an adult. While it is not easy to create characters with intersectionalities in mind, it is something that is still worth trying. Are my comics enough, though? Of course not. They will never be. Let's do an exercise. Think about the movies that come out, the TV shows, the books, the comics, advertising you see all around you, magazine covers. The vast majority of those will feature straight people, cisgender people, men, like for example in action or superhero movies, and white people. If you're a straight cisgender person and you don't feel represented, you just flip the channel. or you pick another book on the shelf. LGBT people do not have that. There are millions of options for cisgender people, straight people. We're still far from it, from having representation, given how heteronormative society still is. My comics are not enough. We need dozens, we need hundreds, we need thousands of options of representation. If you're not satisfied with what you see and you have the resources to do it, the expertise, do it yourself. If you can't, that's where different underrepresented groups have to intersect in their fight and their support. Allies are more than welcome. Support the initiatives you want to see more of as part of a minority or as an ally. So if you're a man, straight or gay, go see a movie with a superheroine, read books written by women, watch shows with main characters that are women. If you're white, watch movies with non-white leading roles written by non-white writers. Understand the experience of not being white in a racist society. Welcome the feeling of being uncomfortable with that. That's when you learn and that's when you change. I could give you many other examples, but my point is your money is political. Where you spend it is a statement. Your time has a meaning, and the ratings you help give to TV shows, for example, mean something. Everything we do is political, even what you wear. So if you can't support it with money as much as you wish, use social media or the dinner table and talk about artists or a writer or a show you like to people around you. Independent artists, a lot of times, do the work that big publishers and studios don't think is profitable. And a lot of those times, this is because it's work about the representation of minorities. So again, minorities representation only happens if you support it beyond just saying that you do. Thank you very much.
So, though your comic strip is not enough to fully change comic book culture, it is absolutely a step. And I just want to thank you for doing that. I think it's a fantastic thing, absolutely, to have for our queer, gay, LGBT youth, to have that, and visibility absolutely does matter. So thank you so much, Chris, for that. All right, Patrice, I told Patrice earlier that they're our closer, and they are warmed up and ready to go. So Patrice Palmer is our next presenter. Patrice M. Palmer, who uses they, them pronouns, is a native Sea Islander hailing from Moncks Corner, South Carolina by way of Johns Island. Their work centers around diversity, inclusion, and justice within higher education. They are the co-author of the ACPA, American College Personnel Association, highly celebrated book, Debunking the Myth of Job Fit in Higher Education and Student Affairs. Their chapter, Code Word Fit, Exploring the Systemic Exclusion of Professionals of Color in Predominantly White Institutions, showcases their years of experience working in institutions of higher education as a non-binary trans masculine person and the issues of race, gender equity, and inclusion that follows. Patrice is an adjunct instructor of management in the College of Business, an instructor for PLP, teaching leadership styles and programs for second-year President's Leadership Program. They are also an external inclusion strategist for companies such as AP and New Belgium Brewing Company. When not looking for just approaches and accessible outcomes within leadership, they love relaxing with their partner of 6 years and their 5-year-old fur baby. Help me welcome Patrice Palmer.
All right, now, so let me tell you this. I will be going back and forth with English and Gullah. It's going to be almost like Spanglish, so you'll hear it go back and forth. Don't worry, just hold on. All right. So, first time I ever realized I actually may be speaking something slightly different, I went to a Christian camp, and they were singing Kumbaya. And so all these folks around this beautiful fire are holding each other and just like, Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. And you're like, that sounds funny. So I say, I don't think that's how you say that. No, Patrice, I'm telling you, it's kumbaya. It's an ancient Navajo word, and you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, no, I've heard that song before, but the way we sing it is a little different. How you sing it? Kumbaya, my love, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my love, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my love, kumbaya. Oh, Lord, kumbaya. Nah, that's not how you say that. So I go to my mother and I say, Mom, they telling me I don't know how to say this thing right there. They're cracking the teeth for me right now. I say, man, you talk like that in front of them white people. Yeah, man. They say that's not how we supposed to talk. My mother looked me dead in my eye and said, outside of this house, you do not speak that way. That was the first time I knew I was speaking something different. See, I'm a descendant of enslaved folks, very, very different from slaves. We are noblemen, shamans, herbal medicinal healers. 80% of Gula people came through the port of Charleston. See, we got the word Gula from Angola, and when they put us on slave auction blocks, they would say, buy this Gula. And we took the name Gola and we sharpened it and we made it a language. And we made it a people. See, one of the biggest things about language is who gets to have it. If you don't have a language, you cannot be human. And if you are not human, I can make you unnecessary. See, my language is a method of combining different types of phrases in order to communicate. It is a Creole word. It is a Creole language. The bridge, the dialect between that comes out as pidgin because it's a bridging of all of these different cultures, 15 different tribes, 6 or 7 different countries from the continent of Africa. All came through one port, and guess what? We had to be able to talk to each other because we still had work to do. So if me and you don't speak the same language, you know that means pick up that rick. The other thing that I noticed by looking at my own language of Gola, I realized that Ebonics and slang were dialects of my language. You are speaking a language. It came from enslavement. It is a people. And therefore, you are too. You are human. And nobody can take that from you. So when you see Ebonics and slang and hood, and you know I represent Detroit in everything I do, the dialects are the same. I can communicate the same because those are the same people. We are the same people. And so often they try to separate us with language. They try to separate our dialects. They try to separate how we show up. Because if we have not mastered their language, then apparently we are not fit to be human. Yes, I'm bilingual. See, being bilingual means that you are fluent in 2 different languages. The languages do not correspond to each other. They have to be distinct. But I also realize that bilingual agency is absolutely steeped in colonization. Who gets to be bilingual? Because my language doesn't show up when you pull up languages. Who I am, a part of the African diaspora, is looked at as having broken English. English ain't broke. It broke up, though. Very, very different things. Languages are still being formed. Why? Because there are still different multitudes of people coming together. You can't just be an English speaker, a Spanish speaker, a French speaker. They all are base languages. Nikki DuBois writes, Mama said, answer me, child. I hear, but I don't reply. Answer me, child, her cracked voice, make me want to run out the kitchen right into the yard. This the last time I tell you. Y'all better answer me. Which a bitty Nick, looking like a stick naked jaybird. Wash up for supper. Now, if I read that in English, Mom said, answer me, child. I hear, but I don't reply. Her cracked voice makes me want to run out the kitchen and into the yard. This is the last time I tell you. You better answer me. With your skinny neck, looking like a stark naked jaybird. Go wash up for supper. 2 different languages. Ain't the same. You hear it in every song. Press, press, press. Cardi don't need no press. Using that dialect. African. That's who she is. You taste it in our food. Y'all really like that shrimp and grits, ain't it? A lot of hot sauce on that chicken. Y'all know what it is. Red beans, some rice. That's my food now. You see it in our passions when we stand before you. We are in every place. We speak the same language. You feel it in our religion. Dance with us. I hear it before you even say something. You hug me and I feel you. Because that's what being Gula really is. Gula is more than just a language. It is a people that was created out of the worst tragedy that has ever happened. We be Gala, anointed people. Now, some of you heard about this armed cross and you thought it was a movie. No, man. In Cameroon, in Egypt, in all these different places in Africa, when you buried your dead, you wrapped their arms, the last hug you could give them. When they crossed their arms in front of you, it meant that they went back to their royal line. This ain't no movie to me. This me. This Gala.
Do you want me to bring back your scarf? Is that what I should be doing right now? Okay. That was fantastic. I hope that you are leaving, as I am today, inspired. It's one of the absolute most inspiring things I think we do throughout the symposium, to hear from different leaders on campus, stories on campus, research, and different expertise on campus. And so I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our presenters again. They amaze me, and thank you for generously offering and sharing of yourself. Thank you so much. We do have about 10 minutes left. If you want to hang around, please stay around, interact with our presenters, chat them up. I also want to encourage you one more time to hit up the different sessions during the Diversity Symposium. We have a full line this afternoon with our fireside chat with the president, starting at 4 o'clock in the LSE Theater. We also have a full schedule tomorrow, which is our School of Education track, which we have particular sessions identified for educators, and we follow up Friday afternoon. So thank you so much for coming. Have a great afternoon.